Hello YouTube, this is Dazzathecameraman, and this is an impromptu hangout to discuss some events which have just taken place over on the WTFSky channel with their guest and very close friend, Mr. Scott Cone from Nibiru Planet X, the Awakening channel. I have with me a panel, and I'll let you introduce yourselves. Go ahead, guys.
I guess I'll go first. I'm Astronomy Live. Thanks for having me on, Dazza.
You're welcome. Go ahead, guys.
I'm Ankinectis. Just call me Thought and Memory. It's easier.
That's Thought and Memory.
I'm the Unvarnished Truth.
And the Unvarnished Truth. Thank you guys for joining us. So we're just having this hangout to discuss this live hangout, which is actually still going over on the WTFSky channel. And despite Jake's assurances to me several months ago that he would never, ever work with Scott Cone, the scumbag Scott Cone, he would never have anything to do with him. There they are, buddies, all laughing and chatting away on the channel, and allowing Scott to use their channel to spread a whole lot of lies about people, myself included, and Astronomy Live and others. And there they are, as always, attacking everybody. They keep on saying that they're done with all the negativity, that they don't want to have anything more to do with this this energy vampire, that is all the negativity that's going on. And every time they go on air, what are they doing? They're being negative, they're attacking people, they're bullying people. And basically every time that I see Jake go online, pretty much everything that comes out of his mouth seems to be describing himself. What do you think, guys?
Yeah,
That's narcissistic
I'll go with that.
behavior.
Yeah. Now, what I'd like to do is, since I've had Scott Cone on, and Astronomy Live did get into the hangout very briefly until he was kicked out, and I have to compliment you, Astronomy Live, on keeping your cool as you did. I tried to get into the hangout, but I was unable to get into the hangout, apparently because one of the panel participants has me blocked, and that is Two Fists of Fury, Mr. Scott Cone, who is so scared of Dazzathecameraman that he's got me blocked on all of my channels. So I've got my personal, or my usual Dazzathecameraman channel. I've got my Dazzathecameraman Arena account, and I've also got my personal YouTube account. So I've tried all three, and I've been unable to get into their hangout so that I could respond to Scott's accusations. So I'd like to do a little bit of a recap here at Astronomy Live on how all of this really started with Scott Cone. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure. So I was starting to tell this story in the other hangout when I got cut off and wasn't able to finish before being kicked out. Before that point, I did start to tread over Scott, what he was saying a bit, and they asked me to, wait my turn, and I did. And the courtesy was obviously not returned. Couldn't finish what I was saying. So as I was saying in that hangout, this all started, gosh, I don't know how long ago it's been now. It's been a year. We had a hangout with Mr. Cone, and it was very civil. We were discussing Nibiru and addressing the claims, and he would ask questions and we would give him answers, and it was all very civil, and I thought we were making progress, and Daz, I believe you thought we were making progress. I think I was probably a little more hesitant, but I was willing to give him a chance, because I feared he might do what he ultimately did, but was perfectly fine with having a civil hangout with him and discussing these claims with him. And sure enough, next day, after the hangout, we start hearing back that he's talked to two professors of astronomy who have informed him that the calculations I had done were all wrong, and they had produced a 13-page PDF detailing how wrong I was, and he was going to expose me, and he was warned about us, and we were just screwing around with him, and we were misleading him. And of course, that all turned out to be a bluff. That all turned out to be false, and he admits that now. But his take on this tonight, his excuse, if you will, I wouldn't even call it an excuse really, just an explanation, is that we were the ones who contacted him, and therefore that was in essence consent for him to treat us however he wanted, because we should have known better than to contact him. We should have avoided contacting him. We should not have debunked anything. And that's generally the feeling I'm getting now from both Jake and Scott, is that they are now of the opinion that it's not our business. We shouldn't have done any debunking. It was wrong of us to have done that. And even if it's done in a civil fashion, we come across as arrogant, as know-it-alls, and therefore we should, avoid refuting what people are saying. I frankly don't agree with that assessment. But furthermore, I will say again, debunking is not consent for abuse. It's not consent to, turn around and lie and attack people and abuse people in response. And it's not fair to say that it was a zero-sum game, that our debunking was harassment or stalking, just as he harassed and stalked us then.
Yeah,
that's not the case at all. All right,
no.
Sorry, go ahead, Daz.
No, and just to reiterate on that, as soon as Scott responded to our initial Hangout video, where we simply discussed the claims made in his video, it wasn't a personal attack on him by any means. We weren't calling names. We were simply looking at the claims made in his video, claiming to show this planet Enoch eclipsing the sun, which of course turned out to be the Earth's own moon showing up in the stereo imagery. Now, Scott Cohn contacted me following that Hangout, and he seemed to be genuinely keen to put forward his side of the story. We had quite a long private discussion on Skype, and it all went very well. And so I invited him to come back to a follow-up Hangout so that he could discuss our findings with him and respond. And as you said, it all went very well. And at the end of that very long Hangout, I think was maybe about 2 hours long, Scott actually thanked us both for being perfect gentlemen. And he said it's a shame that other people can't be like this and, to use his words, act like grown-ass men, as he put it, and to be so polite and respectful. He said he very much enjoyed the Hangout and that he would like to do it again. And then a few hours later, as you mentioned, suddenly he's coming out with a story about having been contacted by these two professors of astronomy from the Pittsburgh University. Now, he sent all these details to me in private messages via Facebook, where he was really going off his face. He said he was so angry that he was shaking that these two men had contacted him, and that, once he released all this information that they had sent him in this 13-page PDF, Astronomy Live was going to have to shut down his YouTube channel because he'd be exposed as a fraud. Well, we know now, of course, that was all a bluff. I called Scott out at the time because I actually emailed those two professors of astronomy from Pittsburgh University, and they knew nothing of it. And I still have those emails today. And Scott has since admitted that it was all just a bluff. I have him on record admitting that it was all just a bluff. So the personal attacks, the lies, and so on, all started with one Scott Cohn. They didn't start with us. We treated him with respect. We invited him into the Hangout so that we could all have an open and balanced discussion. And the lies and personal attacks all started with Scott Cohn. And the rest, as they say, is history. And we've seen nothing but lies and personal attacks from Scott Cohn ever since. You guys want to respond further on that?
Yeah, Daz, can you put some wrenches up, please?
Put some what up? Sorry?
Wrenches for the mods.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure.
Make some mods.
Yep. Anybody else want to respond while I take care of that?
I think that, pretty well covers it. And it's just unfortunate that the lies just keep coming. And I'm sure, Dazza, you'll probably want to address at some point the lies that were told about you tonight. It doesn't stop.
No.
And sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not going to repeat the actual allegations, because if I want to take legal action, and I will be looking into that, then by repeating those claims publicly, I would probably not be doing myself any favors. But some serious defamatory allegations were made about me by Scott Cohn. And basically all he has done is he's told a bunch of lies. He has presented no evidence of those claims whatsoever. And, anybody can just invent a story about somebody. I could invent stories about Scott Cohn, but we don't do that. We go to the facts. We, when it all became very personal and he was making threats of violence and calling employers and doing all the things that he did, that's when it became very serious. And yes, we did check on Scott Cohn's criminal history and details, but nothing that we have ever said about Scott Cohn has ever been a lie. Unlike what he has been doing, he has been telling bold-faced lies, just inventing stories to try and discredit people. And this is what he does. And let's face it, we now see two very different versions of the story that he told, trying to explain away his conviction for assaulting that 5-year-old child. And those videos are going to be re-uploaded so that people can make up their own minds. We hear Scott Cohn explaining what supposedly happened in a call between myself, Astronomy Live, Sean Hufford, and of course Scott Cohn, where he tells a story of what supposedly happened. He claimed that it was his 5-year-old son in the back of the car, stood up on the back seat, had unbuckled himself, and a female police officer saw the young boy standing on the seat and pulled him over and basically threw the book at him. And then a few months later, of course, we get a completely different story about how it was the son of this lady that he had taken care of, invited her and her 2 children to live with him. So, they were down and out, and that the 2 little children were real little rat bags. And do you remember his account of that second story, Astronomy Live?
I do. I don't want to say anything inaccurate to the story that he gave.
Yeah, that's why I'm checking too. But we have it on record, so let's not describe it where we run the risk of saying anything that is not true, because this is exactly my point. We do not publish things without making sure that we have our facts right. Okay, we do not post false allegations against people just to try and discredit them. If we have anything to say about anyone, we make sure that we have our facts right. And Scott Cohn has actually stated in his own words 2 different versions of the story. So we're going to re-upload those videos so that everybody can listen to the 2 very different versions of the same story, and they can decide whether Scott Cohn is telling the truth or whether he is a compulsive liar, as I'm claiming.
And I think this is probably the most critical incident, because I couldn't help but notice that when I first started listening to the Hangout he was on tonight, the 3 people he came out and attacked before any of us were even there was Dazza, myself, and Sean Hufford, who he also told the original version of the story to. And I'm in the state of Florida. I didn't record that call. I'm not legally allowed to record calls unless all the participants have consented. It's a, what do they call it, 2-party consent state for recording calls. Most states, I think, are 1-party consent. So in other words, if you're on a phone call with someone, as long as you consent to it, you can record the call. And it's only legal if a 3rd party who's tapping into the line is recording it without your knowledge or permission. Anyway, I didn't record that call, but it was recorded by one of the other parties on the call. And all three of us kept that story private. That the details of the story he originally told were kept private because Sean promised him that as long as he was telling the truth about that, we would not reveal the details of that call, of that story, and that story would be kept private. As long as that story was true. Now, it turns out that story did not match up with the police report. He said in the story, in the original version, that the police report, when it was read, basically exonerated him, that it contained the information that confirmed what he was saying was true, that this was an incident involving a seatbelt and a kid in the back of the seat. That wasn't true at all. That was completely false, and the police report made that very clear in all the details that it gave. And that's why that police report was sought out, to seek verification and exonerate him, because the information was going around at the time that he was a child abuser, and some even said incorrectly, and I will say that again, incorrectly, that he was a child molester, and that was not true. And we made that clear.
We made that very clear.
Yes. And so
I also corrected people in forums as well if I saw them saying it before we knew. I said, you can't say that. It's a rumor, nothing more. And stop it.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on. Hang on.
So, you know, it's kind of funny now that, you know, we're being attacked for having obtained that police report. But at the time, if you look at what was going on, according to his story, that should have exonerated him, and that should have set the record straight in a way that would make him look a lot less bad. And had that been true, had his story been true, we would have abided by what we said. And, you know, the recording of that story would have remained private, and we would have gone public and said to people, look, guys, it's not as bad as it sounds. It's sort of a fluke thing, and he didn't really deliberately abuse a kid. But that's not what the police report says. It tells a very different story. And so that information is now out there. But at the time, it was supposed to exonerate him. And unfortunately, because he was lying to us, it didn't at all. And that's his decision. That's on him, frankly. So he can attack us now and complain about that. But had he been telling the truth, if he had just told the truth to start with, it would have raised his credibility a lot, at least with me, and I'm sure with Dazza as well.
Yep. Now, not only did he not tell the truth about that incident, we now see that he has told a second, completely different story of a version of events. And I would certainly like to get hold of the lady who was involved so that she might like to tell her version of the story, if that's at all possible. And that's something that I'm looking into. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to mention her name, but we know who she is, and we have those details from the police records. So I've looked into contacting her, and if there's any way possible that I can actually get in direct contact with her, because the email address and other contact details that I had were no longer current. But if anybody knows how I can get in contact with this lady, I would certainly like to give her the opportunity to tell her side of the story, give her version of events, and maybe offer some insight into the real Scott Cone.
And, you know, I do want to say that, and again, I won't repeat his second version of the story. I don't want to get anything wrong. I don't want to provide any misinformation about what he said. The recordings exist. They'll speak for themselves. But I do want to say that in general, the structure of the story, the chain of events, if you look at it in just a sort of a timeline, it matches up a lot closer to the police report from what we know.
Yeah.
But in the details, I would just say that it is quite negative in the way it paints the person who the police report says he attacked. Persons, really, plural. And so I think it's only fair that they get to tell their side of the story too, because there probably are two sides to that story. And while the overall chain of events that he now tells might be much closer to the truth, this is a man who has a history and a reputation now for telling very bold lies. And if you go back and you listen to his first version of the story, as he's telling it, especially at the end, once he's done telling it, he knew we could find out that that was false. And you could hear fear, palpable fear in his voice, because he knew he was going to be busted. And he was probably trying at that point already to come up with what he was going to do about it. You know, I can't imagine that felt good. So, you know, it's unfortunate, but you can't take anything he says for granted. You have to do the fact checking on all of it, even if on the surface it looks like the overall chain of events may match up with reality. You don't know whether the details he's giving you are true or not, because he's got quite a reputation now for telling complete lies.
Yes, he has proved himself to be a compulsive liar on so many occasions. As I've always said, you can always tell when Scott is lying because his lips are moving. It's as simple as that.
So, yeah, you know, it's unfortunate, but I didn't get to finish what I was saying over there. It's, you know, it seems to me that Chris Potter had a very reasonable discussion with you, Dazza. I don't know where he stands now, but it seemed like he was at least open to hearing from both you and me tonight. I would have liked to have talked to him more, and you know, unfortunately, at the same time, it sounded like he was very concerned about the lies he was hearing about you from Mr. Cone. So I do hope that you're able to get that situation taken care of appropriately, because it would be disastrous if he was able to damage your reputation through telling lies. It's disgusting, and it's disgusting to me that he is being given a platform on which to do this, and which he is being heard by people, many of whom listen to your channel quite routinely.
And by the way, I make it very clear here that I hold Mari and Jake personally responsible for allowing that situation. They have allowed somebody to use their channel to broadcast serious defamatory comments about myself and others. And you know, they had every opportunity to nip that in the bud, to head it off, to prevent false allegations being broadcast on their channel. And they allowed Scott to continue broadcasting those lies. So they are actually culpable as part of that for defamation. And I'm going to be looking into that. And certainly, if I was in the US, they would have to be very worried, but I'm still going to be looking into what my options are to follow up on that.
You know, what I watched tonight over there on your channel reminded me of the time that you guys were on with Scott and Bad Baby. AL, you were trying to get out your information. They just talked right over you. I mean, it just brought back what I remember. Talk over you, don't let you talk. And then afterwards, after you've gotten off, they started laughing about it. So I'm like, you know, there's no reasoning with these folks. You know, we do what we do for a reason. You guys are great guys, all of you. Don't let it get you down. Just keep moving forward. But those guys over there, I just don't get it. You know, I really don't get it, why they do that stuff.
And, you know, as I said at the start of this, several months ago, Jake Riley said to me that he and Mari were sick of all the negativity. He said to me that it was an energy vampire just sapping their energy, and they didn't want to do this anymore, that they were done with all of these hate-filled videos. And then what do we see? We see video after video after video, live hangouts. And there is Jake and Mari sitting there attacking everyone, telling lies, and you know, blaming people for things that they're not even responsible for. And Brandon, maybe you'd like to comment on that.
Oh, I'd love to. How is everybody tonight?
Well, I'm good, thank you.
Good, good. Happy holidays. Yeah, I mean, I guess the big thing I want to say is it's really odd to see people trying to hold everyone at these standards and say that everyone needs to be at these standards because we said so, yet they continue to document themselves living below those standards and acting in a way that's nothing with what they're saying. My experience with, I guess I'll speak with WTFSky, is that I absolutely sent an email to Logan about Jake. I did that because I felt Logan was being treated unfairly, whatever. Wasn't my business, regardless. And I later on made an apology, a video about that, tried to explain why I did it, which didn't really matter. But at the end of the day, I was trying to say, you know what I did was wrong, and it's never going to happen ever again. So, and I'm very sorry about that. They, the next day, posted that they were not willing to accept that. They were not willing to accept the apology. They felt it was not sincere enough. And that was that. And they've just continued basically since then, claiming we own this or that channel, claiming I'm harassing them, that Sarah's harassing them.
Basically, every channel that's out there seems to be Sarah. She gets the blame for everything, right?
Right, absolutely. And I have asked their proof a number of times, yet they claim they have physical proof themselves. They also claim to have proof from the government that we are these channels, yet they won't post it. Now, I know we're not these channels. I know in the past they've been saying we've been doxing them lately. We didn't post anything. I did that one email in January. That was me. I can't take it back. I can't change it. It is what it is. Recently, we haven't posted anything, haven't said anything, but they continue to go on these tangents about how they know we're these channels and we're doing this and that. I've continued to ask them for proof, and they have never posted any. And in fact, a few of the channels they said were us ended up being them, which I find very bizarre.
Now, that just reminds me to bring in another point that I wanted to raise, is that they keep talking about people bullying using all of these sock accounts and so on, all these fake accounts. And yet, what do we find out? Of course, confirmation that Jake, none other than Jake, was Phil, what was the surname? Brother Mahoney or something or other?
Something like that.
Brother Mahoney.
Yeah, and Turd Ferguson. And he was using those two accounts to go around and cause all sorts of trouble, stirring all sorts of crap with people, trolling people, causing all sorts of trouble. And, you know, as I say, every time Jake goes live and starts opening his mouth, it sounds to me like he's describing himself. He's such a hypocrite, and so is Mari. And, you know, I feel really sad about the situation because I really like Mari. I thought that she was pretty neat. You know, she seemed to have come out of this whole Nibiru Planet X thing that she believed in. She started figuring things out for herself. I believe she even went out and bought a telescope and was actually getting into amateur astronomy for herself. She was, you know, figuring things out, and she was making debunking videos and helping people. And then I believe they also interviewed, correct me if I'm wrong, did they interview somebody about the effects that the fear-mongering had on them? Is that correct?
I
believe so.
Okay, well, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, she was definitely out there making debunking videos and doing some very good work. And then what happened? Jake came along, and you know, Jake seemed like a nice guy at first, but it seemed to me that eventually the worst thing to happen to Mari was Jake Riley. And I've now actually come to the position where I think actually they're just as bad as each other. Sadly, that is the conclusion that I've come to, is that they are just as bad as each other, and they are all of the things that they accuse everybody else of being.
I have to agree 100%. It's just very bizarre to watch someone do that live and continue to document this thing where all they do is point the finger and then document themselves engaging in the behavior they're telling everybody not to do. It's just very strange. All I know is that there was a time where they had came in and cussed me out on a comment. I left them a question mark, and they that night said that I was attacking them. You know, it's things like that. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I've asked them for proof. They said that in May, June, and July, I was harassing them from multiple different channels. I've asked them for proof. I've asked them to show me where I behave like you do. And they don't. Yep. They just continue to claim that I do. So it's just a bizarre situation. I don't know what their deal is. They keep saying we're obsessed with them. I did one video asking for proof to their 100 videos talking about my record or Sarah's record or how terrible of people we are or whatever. I don't know. I don't really get it.
And, you know, we've seen the situation before with Jake and Mari, where, well, especially with Jake, I found, is that if anybody dares to ask him a question about something, then he takes that as a personal attack. And I find it quite ironic now that, you know, back when he and Lee Wheelbarrow were as thick as thieves and, you know, doing this whole GSM thing, and Lee was the, you know, the honored guest on their channel, and Lee was making certain claims about things. And I questioned a few of the statements that Lee made. And by the way, Tiffany, our Tiffany, has done some fantastic work looking into the claims that Lee has made and the evidence, or so-called evidence, that he presented. But, you know, Jake became quite hostile that we dared to question the almighty Lee Wheelbarrow. And where are things at now with Jake and Lee and Mari? That all turned to custard pretty quickly, didn't it? And now, of course, Jake has been making videos attacking Lee and calling him out, you know. So I just find it quite ironic that, you know, when I or anyone else dared to question anything that Jake or even Lee had to say, then Jake took it as a personal attack.
Yes, it seems that anyone that works with them, they end up leaving and they blame the other party every time. It's always everyone else's fault.
Yeah.
Although they keep telling everybody they need to accept responsibility, we're not really seeing that from them.
Yeah. Jake and Mari had, I believe, a very good circle of people around them, or a circle of very good people around them, I should say. And they have alienated all of those people, and the only ones that are left there to support them really are people, I think, who are not very nice people anyway. Now, I'm sure that there are some people that are still over there who just haven't seen through them, and hopefully maybe this might go some ways so that people will actually see what you know, see them for who they really are. The fact that they're hanging out with and supporting scum like Scott Cone and allowing him to use their channel. And remember, as I said, Jake had said to me that there was no way on earth that he would ever work with Scott Cohn, and he described him as scum. And something else I'd like to mention here too is that several months ago, before this big falling out with Jake and Mari, I asked Jake if he would do some voice acting for me, because we know that Jake is very good at impersonating people. So I had all those private messages that Scott Cohn had sent me via Facebook, where he had claimed to have contacted these two professors of astronomy at Pittsburgh University, which were all lies, of course. So I asked Jake if he would voice act those messages playing the part of Scott Cohn for a video that I've been working on. And sure enough, he did that. And I've got about 20 minutes of audio that Jake did impersonating Scott Cohn, telling all his lies. And, you know, I'd been intending to make that video for some time, and then I thought, oh, I'll let it go. And then I thought, no, it needs to get out there. And then the dust settled again, and I thought, no, I'll let it go, because I could really do without all the negativity as well, to be honest. But then when I'm listening to the Hangout, and there's Jake and Mari, and why am I doing this Hangout now? It's because basically Jake and Mari just couldn't help themselves, and they had to start up with Astronomy Live and myself again in their Hangout. It was completely unprovoked, and they allowed Scott Cohn to go in there and tell his lies about us, to badmouth me and Astronomy Live, and this is why we're on air now. So I'm looking at completing that video, including the audio that Jake Riley did, voice acting Scott Cohn. And I mean, sure, he can put a copyright strike on the video, which will be appealed because it will be fair use. And there's no grounds that he can prevent that video really from being published. And everybody else can share it around in the meantime. And, you know, the old Streisand effect can take place. And the harder that he tries to strike it down, then the more we'll put it out there. What do you reckon, guys?
Go for it.
I'll put it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, get it out there. We'll put it up.
Mm-hmm. And we'll put it out there with the we had the soundbite of Scott Cohn saying to Jake and Mari that he is a felon and that he's proud of being a felon. We heard that in their live feed today. Did we not?
He most certainly said that.
Yep.
Can I just jump in?
Go right ahead.
Yeah. As a representative of Troll, that really nasty evil group.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the associated people that we're friends with, who are all jolly decent people, regardless of what's being said elsewhere. We have all done our best to ignore them and just not interact. We're not interested. For about 2 months, they've been baiting, especially calling out Taj Han's name.
Yeah. Constantly.
Mocking Simeon. I get the odd mention about being a drinker, and I don't actually drink, so I'm not sure where that came from. I have a tipple at Christmas, that's all. And we have not actually made hundreds of videos about them. I know some people have made response videos to accusations, and that's their right. But no one is openly interacting. I know Simeon's popped over and just called him a liar on comments or something, and he was reprimanded. But on the whole, Troll and the people we're friends with have just tried to ignore it. We're not interested. So where they are getting this, that we've arranged the bust up between them and NFF, the thousands of videos attacking them, I really don't know. So I hope they're recording this as well.
Yep.
That's me.
We have shown considerable restraint in the last few months, agreeing to ignore their provocative videos, just to let it go, you know. And but here they are, as thick as thieves with Scott Cohn, and I think the company that they keep really says it all, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Scott Cohn book of dirty tricks.
Now, I sent Chris Potter an email, by the way, because he was on the live Hangout with Jake and Mari, and I have asked him if he would like to join the live hangout. He has gone to the store. He says that he'll be back in a few minutes, and if we're still going, he'll let us know in the chat. Are you guys happy for him to join?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
No problem. Absolutely. You can.
Right. Okay. So we need to keep an eye on the live chat. If he pops up there, then I'll email the link to him instead of dropping it in the live chat where it could be misused. Are there any other points you guys want to cover about any of this, Jake and Mari or Scott?
I completely agree with it. If Scott was just allowed to run his mouth off, that could have been nipped in the bud. He had no right saying what he was saying at all. That's just bollocks. And then afterwards trying to backpedal over it and make excuses for allowing him to do it. That's just, well, par for the course these days.
Yeah, and a reminder too, as I said in the chat during the live hangout, is that we have on record Jake Riley saying that Dazzathecameraman always tells the truth. Those are words straight out of Jake Riley's mouth. So when I say that Scott Cone is a compulsive liar, I'm telling the truth. And when I say the things about Jake and Mari and their behavior, I'm telling the truth. And you know that because Jake Riley said Dazzathecameraman always tells the truth.
I mean, you know, just look at their channel right now. I mean, you know, they had the GSM that went to crap. They have no real content on their channel other than to go after folks. And unfortunately for the Pitmans, they're the punching bag. And I think I told you guys that before, that, you know, you're just gonna have to brush it off your shoulders. They're gonna come after you whenever they can. They're always gonna do it. So, you know, just gotta brush it off. I mean, you can come back with some comeback videos or whatever, but you're the punching bag for them. They think you're easy targets, but you're not. So.
Oh yeah, I've definitely noticed. Like I said, it's very confusing. But I do not get offended by him. I think I also try very hard. I'm trying very hard not to make fun of him and do all the stuff they're doing. And try to limit that. I couldn't resist. Had to do a few comments, but that was about it. You know, I don't really see the point in trying to continue asking someone for proof. Prove what you're saying about me. If you're going to say these things about me, you need to prove them. We can talk about my being in prison all you want. That's the first video I ever did on my channel, was me explaining, hey, look, before y'all go looking, I've lived this way. You know, that's who I was. I've tried to live a better life for almost 9 years now. Doesn't make me a better person, but also doesn't make me less of a person. I'm just a person. So yeah, I've tried to limit some of that in terms of making fun of them and doing all that. I have definitely not threatened them or any of that. I definitely did not harass them in May, June, or July. Actually the first time I ever tried to get on their Hangout or whatever was like, I think last week, just asking them for proof, and I was blocked. So I don't know how I would have been harassing them if I'm not even able to get in their Hangout. And I made it very clear to them, if I'm going to say something to them, I'm going to do it from my actual account. I don't need a sock puppet account. I have one extra account and then a couple Gmail accounts I could use if I needed to. But yeah, I mean, you know, you definitely, with them, you just got to, I try to remember, and I try to tell people, look, do you see them living the way they're telling other people to live? It definitely doesn't look that way to me. So definitely a lot of the pot meets the kettle type stuff. Just my opinion. Not even my opinion. It's just my experience with them. That's really the reality of the situation. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
Yeah, so as long as you guys know that they're going to come after you, then you're okay. Yeah, it may be hurtful sometimes, but you're going to be okay because you know who you are. Every day that you wake up, you know who you are. So, you know, that's it.
Yeah, that's part of the gift. You know, I was the type of person who had to do some work on myself years ago and figure out what I wanted to do in life and where I was going in life. So I did just enough work to be okay with me. But, you know, I also got to, you know, not bring that old person back, you know, that wants to attack or talk crazy or you know, the street side of me or whatever you want to call it. You know, the truth is they're going to say what they want to say. They're going to continue to lie and say they have all this proof. We know what channels we own. So it's really bizarre to hear someone say, we know you own this channel, and that channel, and these other 600 channels. And we have proof from the government that you do, when I know we don't own them. So at this point in the game, I'm so confused by what they're trying to do. I think tonight didn't even make sense, especially having Scott on there. We all are very aware that he's just a dishonest person that's never going to be able to be honest about anything. So, yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. No, I think tonight was just a baiting thing for them to see how many people they can draw in so that they can somewhat try and get back into the game again. You know, how many times have they said that they were out of the game, but they stay away for a little bit and they get that itchy finger and they want to jump back in. So it's up to y'all what y'all want to do about these guys.
I think a lot of that is because, you know, that they want to have the views, so they just can't leave it alone. Basically, their whole GSM thing is fallen over. So, you know, what can they do to get the views? They have to do all these stupid bullying videos and so on, just for the drama, attacking people and so on. It's just a shame that Mari can't go back and do what she was originally doing, which she was doing very well at the beginning.
Yeah. Agreed.
Before she went over to the dark side.
Well, enough about the gruesome twosome. Can we talk about Scott for a minute?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Gruesome, awesome.
I think it was today and yesterday. I know Scott and the physicists, they had put out that video about the irrefutable. And I had made some comments on the physicist channel. And she seems like a very nice person as far as, you know, letting comments go. But I think I touched a nerve and then she blocked me. And then Robert Lockwood, he came out with the video. And I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. Here we go. And then Tiff and Jerry Bell came out with one this afternoon that just totally debunked their thing about the 2001 with the Yoko satellite during the eclipse on December 14th. And she was sticking to her guns, and they just blew that theory right out the freaking water. So I'm curious to myself as to what they're going to try and come back to now, or try to do now, because to me, they painted themselves into a corner.
You know, to be honest, I don't think they really care, because let's face it, it's all about lies. They don't care as long as they're getting the views. As long as the lie that they concoct gets views, that's all that matters to them, because it's all about the money for the views. And, you know, Scott Cohn has no conscience. He has no moral compass. So I don't believe it really matters to him. I think, if anything, he'd find it frustrating that he keeps getting busted out for his lies. But hey, as long as the views keep coming in, that's all that really matters, right?
You know, that's the sad part, because people will sit there and believe that. I mean, if you just go and take a look, especially with the physicist channel, and you go there and take a look, she'll make some statements, and then you see all these crazy comments that people put in there. I'm like, are these people in their right mind? You know, I know people want to believe in something, but if you just go out and search for yourself, because I was curious about a lot of that stuff. And so I'd go to the NASA websites, learn how to work my way through some of the programs that they had there to look at various things. And it's not that hard. You know, the NASA website, I mean, they got different pages and stuff like that, but you can understand it once you get in there. And it's, to me, it's common sense. And I can't believe that there is some sort of stellar core munching on the sun, goes back out, gets hungry again, and then comes back in to get a refuel. What is this, NASCAR or something? I don't know.
Right.
But people hang on to that. I know people want to believe in something, but to me, believe in yourself first before you believe in anything else anyone else says. Research for yourself. Try and find the information. If you can't, go to people who actually have the knowledge. And what really kind of makes me feel sad is the fact that, yeah, she has a doctorate in theoretical physics, but what happened in her life to make her turn the way that she's going? I don't know. And it's sad because people will follow her.
I think that she wants to be something that she's not. I think that's what it boils down to.
I mean, you know, she may know a lot about theoretical physics, but she knows nothing about astronomy.
Yeah.
She knows nothing about orbital mechanics. She knows nothing about that stuff.
And on that point, yeah, on that point, I find it quite ironic that Scott Cohn was pointing out, as he's done before in the Hangout, that Astronomy Live is not an astronomer. No, Astronomy Live is not a qualified astronomer. He is a scientist, but he's not qualified as an astronomer. He certainly is an amateur astronomer, and he's a very good one at that. But if Scott Cohn is going to point the finger at Astronomy Live and say, well, he's not an astronomer, well, the same is also true, not only of Scott Cohn himself, who runs a Planet X research channel, but the same is also true of Dr. Claudia Albers. She is not an astronomer. She is not an astrophysicist.
True.
And yet here they are turning out these videos as if they are both a couple of experts in astronomy, which they're not.
You know, I've even asked her one time in one of her videos, well, Dr. Albers, could you provide me with the coordinates? Oh, I don't think I can. I wish I could speak like her. Oh, I don't think I can, but it's somewhere in between Mars and Venus or something like that. Or what? If you could sit there and do all that mathematical equations in your reports, then you should be able to do the mathematical equations and tell me where the freaking doggone planet is, or whatever it is that's out there.
Astronomy Live can take observations with its own telescope and actually number crunch the orbital elements for that object that he's observed, and actually plot the trajectory and actually prove the trajectory by doing follow-up observations. And he has done this before. Now, if that doesn't make him an astronomer, then I don't know what does, because you know, he is very skilled at what he does. And you know, Dr. Albers wouldn't even have a clue where to start as far as that is concerned.
That's why she trashes it.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why they... Go ahead.
So all the scientists across the world are using the wrong model, by the way.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It should be the flat model, right?
Flat model. What's the electric universe model? Everyone knows it's the electric universe.
Is it a flat electric universe?
Flat electric. Ah, that's why it needs charging up.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I think that's part of why they always do that, is fear of people, you know, finding out they're not qualified. They don't know certain things. So they always got to talk bad about the person who really is trying to understand the numbers or gain a better understanding of what's really going on in our solar system. They got to make fun of or try to trash the people who are actually trying to do the work, because they don't have that. They don't have that ability. They you know, we've seen, you know, the videos debunking stuff of them lately where things just aren't even real, you know. So they are definitely going to be afraid of somebody who actually knows the facts and the numbers about what's really going on.
Yeah. I stopped watching Scott's videos and, you know, and the so-called physicists videos some time ago because, quite frankly, it's just the same old crap over and over again. You know, lens flares and coronal cavities and spots on the image sensor and even faked images and so forth. It just gets boring after a while, you know. But it did rather amuse me thinking back to the images from the Hangout satellite. And, you know, if we went and checked those so-called brown dwarfs that Dr. Albers claimed were there next to the sun, if we checked them on the Hangout satellite images today, they would still be right there, you know, because they are actually spots on the image sensor, and they can't get around that. So
I've got a video of in time lapse. I went back about 3-4 years, and I got all the shots and made a video up showing it sublimate. So
yeah,
if I can see it, then why can't anyone else?
It's just nonsense, and as I say, it's the same tired old nonsense. Really, it just gets boring after a while, you know, and that's why I've stopped watching the videos.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a break from debunking because, you know, I've made so many videos debunking so many different things on my channel. People send me links in the comments and in private messages all the time and say, Dazza, can you have a look at this? Tell me what you think. And most of the time I can already send them. I can send them a link to a video that I've already done, maybe, you know, 2-3 years earlier, and say, yeah, we've already covered this sort of thing. Go and check this video out. So it just seems a bit pointless making video after video after video of things that we've already covered, you know, lens flares, doing the finger test on the sun, which is caused by the image sensor overloading. It's just the same old, you know, it just gets boring.
But to me, that's part of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, I've got my channel monetized, but to me, it's really not about making money. If it was about making money for me, then I would be motivated to make more videos to make more money, you know. But I mean, my take on it was that if I was going to make the effort in making any videos, then since people are watching them anyway, if I can make a few dollars here and there from the views, then, you know, it just makes it a little bit more worthwhile for me. And by the way, on that, I can tell you that on average, and I've got the latest figures because I've just got my latest payment in from YouTube AdSense for the last 4 months it took for me to get a payment, because I have to wait until the account balance reaches $130 New Zealand. So over the last 4 months, it's $135. I averaged just over $1. I think it was something like $1.11 per day is my income from my videos. So if anybody thinks that I'm in it for the money and I'm making $1.11 or whatever it was, and I've got the figures right here, I'll dig them up in a minute, then that's certainly not any motivation for me to be making money from my videos.
No, I'd complain, get a pay rise.
Yeah, well, being a shill doesn't really pay very well, you know. I've apparently been a government shill for about 6-7 years now. I'm still waiting for my first paycheck, so, you know.
This is only my 2nd year. Good grief.
Yeah, well, you won't be getting a bonus anytime soon.
Oh, no.
I just got to put my headset down for a minute. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. Got the latest figures here. Yes, I was right. $1.11 per day. So that spans a period of 4 months. It was 122 days to be exact. There were 2 30-day months and 2 31-day months. So that's 122 days. I received $135.79 New Zealand. Divide that by 122 days. That's $1.11 per day. I'm raking it in. Woohoo!
Yeah. That's a bar of chocolate a day.
Little one.
Yeah, a very, very little one. Got to look
Okay.
after the figure.
Yeah. Now, I haven't seen Chris come back. I was hoping that he might want to come and join the Hangout, but I don't think anyone has seen him in the live chat. I did send him the link so that he'll find it. I don't see any new emails coming in, so I'll probably wind this up fairly soon. Is there anything else that you guys want to cover before we wind this up?
Go ahead.
Troll and our friends, the evil people, we will be maintaining the ignoring them. We're not interested. We're not making videos about them. We may respond to certain points, but we're not attacking them. We're not interested. And we're certainly not using millions of socks. So that's an end of. It's been like that for 2 months. We've not been interested. And we still aren't. And they can say what they like because it ain't true and people will see it. That's it.
Right. Unvarnished truth. Brandon, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. And I think, I'm kind of with our friends in Troll on that one. It's kind of getting to the point where they're just being ridiculous and just jumping around and kind of name dropping different people that they want to attack for whatever reason. Some stuff is completely making no sense. And that's just where they're at. We can function in a way successfully and continue doing what we're doing without any of that or even noticing. It's not entertaining. Like I said, I just don't get it. So I guess, and also my thing to those of you that are listening that maybe don't understand some of this, if you are bullied by it or bothered by it, talk to someone. I've ran into people online that didn't really know how to deal with it. And they felt uncomfortable or were sad or upset, whatever. Make sure you're talking to someone about that. Don't just let it fester and worry and wonder about, what someone said in a chat. Because let me tell you, the people that were talking tonight about Dazza or Astronomy Live or me and my wife or whoever, I don't believe can back up their words. And I also don't believe their honesty in a lot of areas. I just don't. That's my experience with them. Maybe yours is different, but find your own truth. I'm not the end-all, say-all on any of that. I'm just saying that's my experience. But thank you for this opportunity just to kind of share my experience, and happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you, Brandon. I see that Jake. Oh, now I see WTFSky is in the chat as well. They've just come back. I was going to suggest maybe they would like to join the Hangout so we can. I wasn't able to get into their Hangout, of course, because Scott Cohn had me blocked, and it seems that if any of the participants in the Hangout have another guest blocked, then that guest cannot join the Hangout. So that's why I was not able to join. But I did have thoughts of maybe inviting them to join the Hangout and carry on the discussion, or maybe we could make that for another time if they choose to. Unvarnished Truth, did you have anything that you wanted to add? I see you're muted at the moment. There we go.
No, I just wanted to say, people out there, they watch a lot of videos from various channels and stuff. Just don't take everything for granted. If there's something out there that you don't understand, search it for yourself, or at least ask someone who may have knowledge in those subject areas, hey, is this possible? Because you can get suckered in to something that you're going to find hard to get out of. Just ask.
Yeah.
And just ask questions.
Yep, good point. And so I see WTFSky Mari in the chat spewing her bile as usual. And you know, I remember that the WTF and WTFSky was supposed to be what the faith, as I recall. And I mean, she is just making a nonsense of that. And since you're here, Mari, listening, then I just want to reiterate what I said earlier, that it's such a shame that you were doing so well with your debunking right back at the start. You were helping so many people deal with the fear that they were suffering as a result of the fear-mongering videos that we were all debunking at the time. And I don't know what happened to you, Mari. It's a real shame, and it's quite sad. And, you know, I hope that you will take some time to stop and reflect on what you have become, because you have turned into something very, very ugly. And on that note, I think we'll wind that up. And I think there'll be some interesting response videos to be uploaded to put things in their correct context. So thank you for joining me, Brendan, and Thought, and Unvarnished Truth. And we had Astronomy Live with us earlier here to leave the chat. So thank you all, and good night.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Good night.
Night, guys.